public on Broomfield's live streaming YouTube channel. Authority members, licensees, and the public are able to attend the meeting remotely by clicking the link listed on the agenda or by calling 888-788-0099. Thank you for participation in tonight's remote meeting, where the format is focused on efforts to comply with COVID-19 pandemic health and safety guidelines while ensuring review and approval of business items. Authority members, along with staff, remain committed to conducting city business, engaging with our applicants, and supporting our community in the best way possible. On behalf of the local licensing authority and Broomfield staff, we appreciate your patience as we all move through this unprecedented event together. We're grateful to all residents for doing their part to help flatten the curve and keep Broomfield healthy and safe. The local license is called to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Berlin.
Present.
Groom. Jazerski. Marsh-Holshan.
Here.
Murray.
Present.
Starkovich.
Here. A quorum is present. Chairperson. Let's see. Will act as well. Yeah, Chairperson Berlin is available to be in attendance at the meeting, but may not be able to return the signed documents this evening. As Vice Chairperson, I will act as chair of this meeting and sign and return necessary documents. Chairperson Berlin as acting chair. Each member of the authority has a copy of the minutes of the March 3rd, 2021 licensing authority meeting. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes?
Nope.
All right, seeing none, the minutes of the meeting of the licensing authority of the March 3rd, 2021 stand approved as submitted by the deputy city clerk. This item agenda 3A, Forgotten Inc. LLC doing business as Inks and Drinks application for new tavern license. This is a public hearing. I now declare the public hearing open. The purpose of the hearing is to permit all parties in interest and opportunity to be heard regarding the application submitted by Forgotten Inc. LLC doing business as, procedures which will be followed in the conduct of the hearing are as set forth in the authority's rules of procedure. So for introductions at this point, we ask the applicant and or the applicant's representative to introduce themselves and state their names and address for the record.
I'm Lisa Cromer, owner of Forgotten Inc. My address is 9353 West 100 Circle, Westminster, Colorado, 80021.
All right, thank you, Ms. Cromer. Are you representing yourself tonight as the applicant, or do you have any representative to help you?
Just me.
Okay, all right. We will now proceed with the city administration's report.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Christine Franciscani with the City Attorney's Office, filling in tonight for Pat. The information submitted by the applicant is offered as exhibits for purposes of the public hearing. These are listed in the agenda memorandum as exhibits A1 through A7. Information provided by city staff is also offered as exhibits. These are listed in the memorandum as exhibits B1 through B3.
Okay. Exhibits A1 through AZ or 7 and B1 through B3 have been offered. So are there any objections, Ms. Cromer, anybody else, to the admission of exhibits A1 through A7 and B1 through B3?
No.
All right, hearing and seeing no objections, exhibits A1 through A7 and B1 through B3 will be admitted. All right, Ms. Cromer, at this point, this is your case to present. So please be advised the authority has reviewed their memorandum, including the application and attached exhibits. And you may now proceed with presentation and any additional testimony or evidence. And we'll begin by having the city clerk swear in you and any potential witnesses.
My apologies, give me one moment, sorry. I had it up here. Do you swear to tell the truth on all matters on which you present to the authority at this meeting?
I do.
All right, Ms. Cromer, go ahead and let us know what you'd like us to consider.
So I'm reopening Inks and Drinks. We were previously at the mall for about 5 years. At that time, we had a beer and wine license. When COVID forced us to close, we ended up being closed long enough that to renew the license, we were going to have to be into a late fee area. So I decided this was my chance to get a full tavern license, especially for the new space. So I went ahead and reapplied. So that's why it's a new application. We've got a new massive space that I'm very excited about here at the mall. And we're excited to be back.
All right. Anything else you would like us to consider?
Don't think I have anything else.
Are there any questions by the authority for this witness?
I have questions. Oh, good.
Go ahead, Ms. Berlin.
Thank you. As I recall, we had a brief discussion at the last meeting with the applicant, and she does have experience running a liquor license establishment. Just for clarification, you have never had a violation in Broomfield or prior, is that correct?
Correct. Sorry.
Should we
I
swear
locked
in
the dog
Pat?
away, but apparently the cats just need to be part of it.
That's a first for us, so thank you. I have no other questions.
Oh, that's first. Oh. I didn't think it would be.
All right, Mr. Murray, go ahead.
Yes, thanks for attending, Ms. Cromer. I appreciate that. In looking at the documents presented to us, looking at your control plan, let's see. Item 1C, how to prevent and or deal with intoxication. Can you expand upon that a little bit to tell us what you or your staff will be implementing on the floor of your establishment?
We've always done it where, since we do larger groups that usually buy bottles for the entire group, since it's kind of a craft thing, very rarely are our groups smaller than like 4. Sometimes it's 2, but it's usually 4. So stuff is usually by the bottle. So we often have bottle limits for the entire table rather than per person, so that we can make sure how it goes through the crowd. Because we'll have people come up and buy for the whole table. So we have to, so that's where we've always watched it the most for that.
Okay.
Now switching to also having hard liquor, I don't want to be like a full open bar. We're definitely not doing shots. I don't want any of that. So we're going to be more pre-made recipes that will also have limits on. And since we're so involved with teaching the crafts, I'm usually, me and or any of the teachers there are usually very involved with the table. It's much more than just waitressing. I'm pretty much hovering over them, helping them paint. So it's very easy to watch how they're doing. And luckily, in the past with what we do, most people don't want to spend $45 on a craft that they're building and then get so intoxicated that the craft is terrible. Right. So luckily that kind of atmosphere helps as well.
Okay. Another question, follow-up question. In looking at, I'm scrolling through the application. what appears on my group of documents, page 14, it shows a floor plan. And in the top left-hand corner, you show patio space. Will there be crafting occurring out there also? Or is that
Yeah.
going to be, okay. What type of fencing or wall is on the exterior of this footprint for the patio space?
So I'm installing it next week. It's a metal fence. And then we plan on 2 gate openings, and both will be labeled no alcohol beyond this point.
Okay. And how tall is the fence going to be?
I believe it's 36 inches.
Okay. And what is to the outside of that fence? I'm not familiar with the actual physical location.
It's the main thoroughway to the outdoor part of the mall. So
Okay.
it's kind of like a strip.
Okay.
Right there.
Are you going to build into your control plan that if you do have patrons outside here, that you and your staff will pay attention to what's going on at the table? No sharing, nothing coming over the fence from the outside, nothing going to the outside from your patio space to somebody who walks by, for instance?
Yeah, especially since it is the same kind of format where the teachers are going to be with the tables.
Okay.
It won't be just an open patio. It'll still be the same format as the inside where we're helping people through everything.
Okay, then one more.
Yep.
Item 1F, where it says supply to minors, e.g. under 35 protocol. Can you explain that to us?
We've essentially just adopted IDing everybody,
Okay,
no matter how old they look. It's just much easier just to put everyone together and just say IDs are required.
okay, perfect. And that will be explained to current and new staff as they come on board?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. That's all I got. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Do any of the members of the authority have any other questions? All right, I have one question. Thank you again, Ms. Cromer, for being here. So it looks at your application. So Mr. King, it looks like he's been manager for quite some time, since about 2009. Is that correct?
Yes.
And is he still going to be a manager here?
Yes.
Okay. And I mean, what's your opinion as to how he's doing? Or I mean, or what control do you have over him? I guess is what I'm trying to get at.
It's my husband. So,
Fair
so
enough.
he's pretty much owner with me. He's just not owner on paper. So he's definitely involved.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I didn't know how much interaction you were going to have with him, so I didn't gather that from the application. So that makes sense.
Yep. Different last names, but we are married.
Okay, so you'll be you'll be involved with him 100%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And he is the main bartender, so he's usually up there. And then I'm usually the one with the people at the tables. So we're
Okay.
both very involved.
Has he had any experience before 2009 in the liquor industry in any way?
Yeah, we were both
that
servers
you know of?
for years. Yep. You
Jacob,
muted.
we lost your voice, Jacob. Can't hear you, Jacob. Your mic's off. We lost your signal, Jacob.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there you go.
Are we good? Am I back?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay. All right. Sounds good. Sorry about that. All right. Is there any party in interest who wishes to cross-examine this witness? All right. All right. Hearing none, seeing none. All right. Seeing none, hearing none. I already asked that next question. All right. Are there are there any additional exhibits, Ms. Cromer, that you would like to introduce?
I do not have any additionals.
Are there any other parties in interest in attendance who desire to speak or to present testimony specifically in favor of this application? Seeing none, hearing none. Is there any party in interest who desires to speak or to present testimony specifically in opposition to this? Hearing none, seeing none, then we'll proceed with closing statements. Okay. Ms. Cromer, are there any closing statements you'd like to make?
Just am very excited to be back in Broomfield. So,
All right. Any parties of interest who has any summations or closing statements? Are there any final questions from the local licensing authority? Hearing none or seeing none, there being no further questions, the public hearing is now closed. Thank you, Ms. Cromer, for being here. The authority would like to thank you and any parties, all parties, for any testimony or information presented. Okay, for findings, are there any proposed findings that may be presented by the staff?
Yes, sir. We have the following findings for the authority. The premises were posted as required by law. The notice of the application was published as required by law. The application is or will be entitled to possession of the premises for which application is made by virtue of a lease agreement between Flatiron Property Holdings LLC, which is the landlord, and Forgotten Inc. LLC, doing business as Inks and Drinks, the tenant, expiring on February 1st, 2024. The following exhibits are admitted into evidence: the completed application, Exhibit A1, A2, the individual history record of Nasa Cromer and Stephen King, A3, diagram of the premises to be licensed, A4, the control plan, A5, Colorado Certificate of Fact of Good Standing for Forgotten Inc. LLC, A6, the lease agreement between Flatiron Property Holdings LLC and Forgotten Inc. doing business as Inks and Drinks, A7, the online petition results and supporting documents, B1, memorandum from Anna Bertonzetti, Community Development Planning Director, dated February 10th, 2021. B2, affidavit of posting dated March 4th, 2021, and publication dated March 21st, 2021. B3, notice of public hearing published March 21st, 2021. Finding number 5, Nasa Cromer appeared on behalf of the applicant, and I apologize to everyone. This is where Pat had me, had highlighted for me to take notes, and so I was trying to listen to the hearing and neglected to do that. So, but I will say that Ms. Cromer gave information about the business and testified that there is a need for this type of business in Broomfield. And please, if you have any additions for me on that, don't hesitate to interrupt me. Finding number 6, between March 27th, 2021 and March 29th, 2021, applicant conducted online petitioning and notified local businesses that Inks and Drinks would be returning to Flatiron Crossing and that the owners would apply for a tavern license. 4 local businesses responded with support for Inks and Drinks and a tavern license, and the applicant forwarded those messages to the city and county of Broomfield. No one appeared in opposition to the application. And that concludes the findings.
Thank you very much. All right, if the authority wishes to proceed to consider the findings and render a decision, a motion to adopt or amend the findings is in order.
Mr. Chairman, I propose that the proposed findings be adopted.
I second.
All right, there has been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, seeing no further discussion, will the clerk please call roll?
Berlin,
Aye.
Murray,
Aye.
Starkovich.
Aye. All right, it looks like motion passes. If the authority wishes to render a decision, having now adopted the findings, what is the pleasure of the authority regarding a decision?
Go ahead, Leon.
Okay. That having reviewed the evidence in its entirety, the authority finds that the applicant has sustained its burden of showing that the reasonable requirements of the neighborhood or the desires of the inhabitants were not satisfied by existing outlets. Accordingly, the application is approved and the license will be issued pending issuance by the state and inspection and approval of the premises by the city and county.
I would second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, I see no hands or any discussion. So seeing no further discussion, will the clerk please call roll? Please respond by saying aye or nay.
Murray,
Aye.
Starkovich,
Aye.
Berlin.
Aye.
Excellent. Well, the motion passes. Congratulations, Ms. Cromer. Good luck with your business. Thank you for being here tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks for the entertainment with the cat. That was great.
Yep. I didn't think it would be the first one, but
Have a good
Good
night.
night, Ms. Cromer. Thank you.
too. Thank you.
All right, moving on to agenda item 3B, Hollandaise Incorporated doing business as Hollandaise, transfer of ownership, hotel and restaurant license. Members of the authority have a copy of the application along with the agenda memorandum, which sets forth the staff's review. Are any representatives present? To Ms. Ramos, Alyssa Ramos, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
We can hear you okay. Do you have video capability?
Yes. Mm,
I'll give you a minute to try to turn that on. There we go.
we are.
Thank you for appearing tonight. Could you please state your name and spell your address or state your address for the record?
Yes, it's 1275 East First Avenue in Unit B, Broomfield.
All right. Thank you for being here tonight. Do you have any other representatives on your behalf? Or are you representing yourself?
Just representing myself.
Okay, thank you. Does the authority have any questions of the representative? Mr. Murray, go ahead.
Yes. Ms. Ramos, thanks for being here tonight. I appreciate that. In looking at the documents, the name of the company is Hollandaise, is that correct?
Yes, that's
Okay. And going down my long list of documents here. On your alcohol control plan, on 1A, it says thorough review of this alcohol control plan. Is there going to be any check and balance with your employees to make sure that they read it and understood it and will comply with that? Or is it just, here's the plan and review it, but you're not really sure if they actually did review it?
yes, there will be some training for each of our employees. Part of their responsibility if they're working in the front is to understand the current rules and regulations, and then each my manager or myself will be going through that with them, just so they understand or if they have any questions about it.
Could you get a little bit closer to your microphone? My volume is way up, but it's difficult to hear you. I'm sorry.
Let me turn mine up as well and see if, is that better?
That's better. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, we're gonna be training each individual through their hiring packet, just to go over, any questions they may have, as well as training on, the current rules and regulations.
Okay. And under 3, actually 3C1, vertical versus horizontal ID markers. Do you understand the legal difference between those two? And if so, what are you going to teach your employees about the differences and what's legal and what's not?
Yes, we will teach them about, specifically the markers, just to make sure, one, the ID is not expired, of course, and then it's a pretty good indicator that if the ID is horizontal, that they're probably under age, at least from what I've seen, and then making sure that they're checking, of course, the birthday as well.
Now, are you going to have any electronic devices that will scan the licenses and do the math for you? Or are you going to have any signage? A lot of places have signs that say if you're born before this date, you're okay. After this date, you're not. What are you going to do to make sure that the math that your employees is involved in is accurate math to try to figure out the actual age?
So they do make an app on your phone, so you can actually, the day of you're working, pull that up and then it can show you that. But we'll also have markers as well, just to show, like you said, like little posters as well, to see what's valid for the age.
Okay, and then I just read two very similar control plans. Let me make sure this question is applicable to yours. Yeah. Under 2, well, it's the section where it says, please remove intoxicated person to the manager's office while we wait for a person to be removed from the premise safely. I need to hear a little bit more about that. Remove from premise. Are you going to put them on the stoop outside the front door? Are you going to put them back in their car, put them in a friend's car, call the cops, call a cab? What do you do when you get them off your premise when you stated up front that they're intoxicated?
I think it depends on the situation. Obviously, if they're intoxicated, and in addition to that, they're also being, really unruly and just, they're making my guests and especially the staff feel uncomfortable, then of course police would be involved at that point. But if it's someone who's intoxicated who clearly is not going to be able to drive, then, contacting somebody to come get them if there's, if they're with a group of people who can take them home safely, or calling a taxi as well. And then the one for the managers was just a recommendation that I was given in case that, maybe some guests were uncomfortable. We could put them in a spot where they're kind of safe if needed. Of course, I can adjust that, per your recommendation as well.
What I was looking for is and I probably can speak for the board, but I'll speak for myself. I just would like to see you put an intoxicated patron outside your door and then something happened bad to them. Because potentially, if you were the last legal liquor licensee that person was on your premise, potentially you could be exposed to civil liability for anything bad that they do to someone else or happens to them. They jump out in front of a car and get hurt or killed, and you were the last licensee that they were on your property of, you have been exposed to liability for their actions. So I just want to make sure that they're not placed on the stoop and then you think that, wipe my hands, you think that you might be free of them, because potentially you're not. And I want you and your staff to think about what happens after they leave your property.
Right. Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. That's all I got, Mr. Chair. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Murray.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Berlin, go ahead.
Ms. Ramos, if I heard you correctly, you may have accidentally misstated the vertical versus the horizontal driver's license. The horizontal is the one that would indicate a person is of age, 21 and over. The one that is vertical is the one that might indicate that a person is younger than 21 years old, rather than the reverse.
Oh, yes. Apologies on that.
Good
That's
catch,
all,
Mr.
Mr. Chair.
Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Berlin. Ms. Ramos, thank you for being here tonight. Just a couple quick questions. And I'm, like the last application, I can assume that Jared Ramos, since the same last name and address, is that your husband?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And he's listed as the manager on the application. So are you going to be involved with him as well?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right. And he's actually listed as, I think, if I look at it right, 45% owner. So you and him are 45% apiece. So that comes up to 90%. Who are the other 10% owners?
I have two 5% owners that are that make up the additional 10.
Okay. All right. Are they going to be involved at all in the running of the business?
No.
Okay. All right. That's all the questions I have. Do any other members have any other questions? Go ahead, Mr. Murray.
Ms. Ramos, I just want to verify something. You may be able to do it, maybe not, because your husband is not there. But in looking at his signature line on the bottom of his individual history record, it appears that he wrote the year 2020. I can't totally see. I just want to, if you could maybe speak in his behest that he signed this document this year, because you signed it on the 19th of February. So I'm going to make a jump and think that he might have signed it with you, but yours is dated correctly and his doesn't have what appears to be an accurate date. So could you speak to that for us?
Yeah, absolutely. We did it together. So
Okay, so they were done on February 19th of 2021, correct?
yes, that's correct.
Okay, just want to make sure that we have an accurate, timely document in our packet. Great. That's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Any other questions by the authority? All right, what is the pleasure of the licensing authority?
Let me get there. That the licensing authority approve a transfer of ownership of the hotel and restaurant license from Tanawat International Corporation, DBA Zo Sushi and Thai, to Hollandaise Inc., DBA Hollandaise.
Now I would second that motion.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, will the clerk please call roll? Please respond by saying aye or nay.
Starkovich,
Aye.
Berlin,
Aye.
Murray.
Aye.
Seeing the motion passed. Congratulations, Ms. Ramos. Thank you and good luck to you and your husband.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Good night. All right, moving on to agenda item 3C, Chipotle Mexican Grill, Inc., doing business as Chipotle Mexican Grill, application for a new beer wine license, say boundary setting. Members of the authority have a copy of the application, along with the agenda memorandum, which sets forth the staff's review. Can the staff please summarize the material?
All that is necessary at this point is to note receipt of the application, establish the neighborhood boundaries, and set a date and time for the hearing. The suggested neighborhood boundary is the area within a radius of 1 mile from the premises proposed for the license.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, I see someone there, looks like an attorney or the applicants or applicant's representative present.
Good evening, Brian Prophet, registration number 31101 on behalf of Chipotle Mexican Grill.
All right, thank you, Mr. Prophet, for your attendance tonight. Do you have any objection to the proposed neighborhood boundary?
We have no objection.
All right, and so what is the pleasure of the licensing authority?
Hang on just a second. Oops. That the local licensing authority note receipt of the application for a new beer and wine license at 1940 Coalition Road, Broomfield, Colorado, 80021. That the local licensing authority set a public hearing on said application for 5:30 p.m. on May 5, 2021, to be held in the City Council chambers of the George de Soto and County Building or remotely as necessary. And that the local licensing authority establish the neighborhood boundaries for the subject to application as the area within a radius of 1 mile from the applicant's proposed location as attached.
Just a quick amendment in a second. That'd be Colton Road, and I would second it.
All right, thank you. There's a
Colton Road, I apologize. We lost your hearing, Jacob.
Ms. Monroe, looks like you're on mute still.
We can hear you now, Jacob.
Can you hear me now? All
Yeah,
right, I see no discussion. Will the clerk please call roll?
Berlin,
aye.
Murray,
Aye.
Starkovich.
Aye. All right, thank you, Mr. Prophet, for attending, and we'll see you, I believe, next month.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you as well.
Thank you, folks.
All right, moving on to agenda item 4, violation report update. Is there anything we need to know?
Not at this time, Chair.
All right, thank you. Agenda item 5, police department report. There are no police department reports. Agenda item 6, city and county attorneys report. There's a status 6A, a status of city and county of Broomfield marijuana regulations.
Yes, sir. At its February 23rd, 2021 meeting, the City Council considered ordinance number 2149, regulating marijuana establishments within the city of county of Broomfield at the first reading. At that meeting, the ordinance was amended and then passed. At its March 16th, 2021 meeting, the City Council held a second hearing on ordinance 2149. After further amendments, the amended ordinance was approved on second reading and will go into effect on May 3rd, 2021. Specific to the local licensing authority, the authority will have authority over violations, renewals with violations, and certain license changes, for example, transfers and changes of ownership, but will not have a role in the initial issuance of marijuana license. The initial selection process is expected to take several months, and at this time, there is no action needed by the local licensing authority.
Okay. Thank you
I
very
have a
much.
question.
Go ahead, Mr. Murray.
Is it Franciscani?
Yes, sir,
Is
that's
that
exactly it.
Is that close? Perfect. Without reading the entire document, just like the previous document we provided about the potential ordinance, I'm curious, you just stated that we would not be involved in the initial issuance, that we would be involved in transfer of ownership. And to me, those two background situations seem to be very similar. And I'm wondering why we would be involved in transfer, but not in the initial. To me, I would think they would both be done by the same entity, because to me, it looks like probably going to be the same process. Any idea why we were given a piece of the former?
Thanks, Mr. Murray. So marijuana licensing is very different from liquor licensing, and in some ways, marijuana licensing in Broomfield will mirror the other types of licensing that you all have authority over. So I believe of the several types of licenses that you make determinations on, liquor licenses are the only licenses that you initially approve, and then other ones are, I think, done by the clerk's office or perhaps public health. So that's part of it. And then the other thing is that Broomfield based, when we started this process, of creating an ordinance, we based our process initially, off of Longmont's process. And that was for a couple of reasons. One being that Longmont was successful with their process as far as that they are running smoothly now, and there was not litigation over their selection process. And the second is simply that it's easier to start with cannibalizing or borrowing from other jurisdictions. So that was where we started, and based upon the understanding of the staff of the regulatory field and recommendations of the staff, including my office, the recommendation was to start with a selection committee that has specific expertise in the different items that will need to be reviewed, such as building code, sustainability, security, and all the different pieces of the application. So we were going to have a selection committee specifically picked to be able to evaluate. And frankly, another piece of it is that it is potentially the case that we'll be receiving a very significant number of applications. And the thought is that having staff specifically devoted to that review process will be the most efficient way for everyone to get through it. Longmont's process was pretty arduous, and we're going to follow that pretty closely, including making a report on each application that's found to be complete. That is something we were more comfortable with asking staff to do.
Well, I'm a firm believer in why invent the wheel when we can steal the wheel from somebody else. So I'm a great plagiarist myself, and I try to teach that to those that might listen to me.
Yes, sir.
I wholeheartedly agree that this is going to take a separate review board, and I like that. It's going to be a whole new beast, in my mind, totally separate from what we do currently with the liquor. But I'm just wondering, even though there's more pieces to the initial process of an approval, if somebody wants to sell their license to another entity, currently, with my limited knowledge of the process, I think it would be more beneficial to have the same entity that approved the initial look into the transfer of ownership. I think some of the same questions, some of the same vetting should or could be done by that group as opposed to what we do on the liquor license transfers. That's just my input, again, with my limited knowledge at this time.
Sure, and I definitely appreciate what you're saying. One thing I will note, and I do not have the regulations in front of me, but I believe it's a 2-year period. So once a license is issued, it may not be transferred for a period of 2 years. And so just practically speaking, absolutely, given your thoughts, any board or group that was involved in the initial application selection may not be made up of the same people. But that's another thing that we thought was important. And just to be clear, so if there is, an issue of the death of an owner or something like that and probate, that is the only situation under which a license could be transferred. And I believe the period is for 2 years.
Okay, I'm not trying to shirk any new responsibilities given to the board, but I think before something is written in stone is the better time to bring up questions as opposed to trying to change just a statute or ordinance after the fact. As you know, that doesn't work, or it's difficult to make it work. So
Yes, sir.
I wanted to bring it up.
Yes, sir.
That's all I got, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much, sir.
All right, thank you,
Thank you,
Mr.
Christine.
Murray. Anything, Mr. Orland?
Nothing else. Thank you, and thanks for covering for me.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we'll see no other business, then this meeting will be adjourned.
Good night,
See
everybody.
you guys next month. Thank you.
Good night. Miss Monroe, I'll be looking for the emails tomorrow, and I'll get those signed and sent back to you. I'm still up in